At a prestigious conference filled with hundreds of powerful business minds, Leo stood confidently on stage, preaching the virtues of success and ambition. In the back of the room, Maria, a quiet cleaner, stood unnoticed, her worn-out uniform blending into the shadows. But when Leo pointed at her and mocked her as an example of someone who lacked ambition, the crowd fell silent. Her heart raced, humiliated in front of everyone. Yet, in that moment, something inside Maria shifted. She refused to be defined by his words. She was ready to show him, and the world, that she was more than he could ever imagine. Maria's hands trembled as she gripped the mop tightly, trying to ignore the sting of Leo's words echoing in her ears. The room had gone quiet after he humiliated her in front of everyone, the laughter of some cutting deeper than others' silence. Her skin flushed with shame as she kept her head down, focusing on the floor beneath her, praying that the moment would pass. But Leo's voice boomed again, his confidence a stark contrast to the storm raging inside her. "You see, folks," he continued, now in full stride, "it's easy to talk about success, but it's a different story for those who never try. Like the woman back there, cleaning the floors while the rest of us make things happen. It's not a life of choice. It's a life of comfort in mediocrity." Maria's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to look away, but she couldn't. It felt like her every move was under a magnifying glass, and she had no way of escaping the weight of his words. The other attendees in the hall exchanged glances, some shifting awkwardly in their seats, while others couldn't hide their smirks. Her fingers clenched around the mop handle until her knuckles turned white, but she didn't move. She didn't react. She simply stayed there, her body still, as if she were invisible. Or at least she wished she could be. Leo's speech continued, the crowd hanging on to every word as he painted himself as a self-made success, someone who had risen above the struggles. But Maria didn't hear him anymore. She didn't hear the praise of his hard work and triumphs. She only heard the sound of her own breath, coming quicker now, as the weight of what he had said crushed her. And then it happened. For a fleeting moment their eyes met. Leo's gaze, full of self-importance, locked with hers. The instant was brief, but in that split second, something shifted. Maria felt a spark deep inside her. A fire she hadn't known was there. His judgment, his assumptions about her, they didn't define her. Her face burned with anger, not from the embarrassment, but from the arrogance of a man who thought he knew her. He had no idea who she was. He didn't know her story, her struggles, the sacrifices she'd made to survive. And in that moment, she made a decision. Maria slowly lifted her chin, no longer hiding her gaze. Her eyes met Leo's with a quiet fury. She was done letting people like him dictate her worth. Without saying a word, she dropped the mop and walked out of the room, her steps firm and resolute. As she passed through the hall, her heart raced, but it wasn't out of fear anymore. It was from the rush of defiance. She wasn't going to be that woman anymore, not the one who cowered in the shadows. As she stepped outside, the cool breeze hit her face, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of freedom. The tears she had held back earlier finally began to fall, but they were different now. They weren't tears of defeat. They were tears of release. Maria wiped her face and took a deep breath. This was only the beginning. The following days felt like a blur for Maria. She tried to shake off the sting of the insult, but it clung to her, like the dust she wiped away from the marble floors of those grand offices. Every time she walked past someone in the building, their eyes seemed to follow her, their whispers somehow louder in her mind than the words spoken aloud. But she couldn't afford to focus on their judgment. She had a life to live, and it didn't involve hiding in the background anymore. Maria kept her head down and focused on work. But inside, a storm was brewing. She couldn't forget Leo's words, nor the way they made her feel. Humiliated, worthless, invisible. But that wasn't who she was, and it wasn't who she was going to be anymore. That night, as she sat in her small, dimly lit apartment, her mind raced. She thought about everything she'd been through, the long hours spent scrubbing floors, the nights spent worrying about her sick mother, the constant battle just to make ends meet. She thought about her dreams, the ones she'd buried years ago when life had seemed too hard to chase. But now everything felt different. It was as though that moment in the conference hall had cracked something wide open inside her. The fire inside her was starting to burn brighter, and for the first time in a long while, Maria allowed herself to believe that she could have more. She pulled out a notepad and scribbled down a list of things she wanted, things she deserved. A better job, a chance to prove herself, to stand on her own and show the world that she wasn't just the woman cleaning the floors. She was capable of much more. But where to start? The next morning, as she walked into the Tech Prime building to begin her usual cleaning routine, her eyes were drawn to the stage where Leo had stood days earlier, preaching his success story. She could almost feel his gaze on her again. But this time, instead of shrinking away, she straightened her back. She was done letting his words define her. As she moved through the building, she overheard snippets of conversations. They weren't all negative. Some of the employees had actually praised her work, the way she kept everything spotless. But it was always the same. They saw her as nothing more than the woman who cleaned their offices. No one noticed her for who she was, not the way Leo had tried to demean her. But there was something different today. Something in the air. Maria could feel it. There was a change coming. She decided it was time to speak up, to take a step toward something more. At the end of her shift, she mustered the courage to approach the receptionist. The woman behind the desk, a bright smile on her face, greeted Maria as usual. Maria cleared her throat, fighting the nerves that made her stomach turn. "I need to speak with someone," she said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. I'm looking for a different position, something that can help me grow. I want to contribute more." The receptionist raised an eyebrow, but she didn't dismiss Maria. "Well, we don't have anything open right now, but we can keep you in mind. You can always check back." "No, I don't want to wait. I want something now." The receptionist looked taken aback but nodded. "I'll pass the word along." Maria walked away, her heart pounding. She didn't know what she expected to happen. Maybe nothing, maybe everything, but she had taken the first step. As she left the building, she looked up at the towering structure. She had always seen it as a symbol of her insignificance, an intimidating world she'd never belonged to. But now, felt different. She wasn't just the cleaner anymore. She wasn't going to let anyone define her based on where she came from or what she did. That night, Maria sat at her kitchen table, making plans. Tomorrow would be different. She was done being the background character in her own life. The days that followed felt like the beginning of a new life for Maria. She woke up earlier than usual, her routine sharper, more focused. The world outside her small apartment seemed vast, full of possibilities she had never allowed herself to imagine before. With each step, Maria felt a sense of purpose, a quiet confidence growing inside her. She kept her head down during her shifts, but her mind was always elsewhere. During the long hours spent scrubbing floors and wiping counters, Maria couldn't stop thinking about how she could change her life. She spent her evenings researching job openings online, reading books, and taking free online courses. She learned more about business administration, digital marketing, and project management than she ever had before, her old dreams and ambitions starting to take shape again. Maria knew it wasn't going to be easy. Her current job had never been glamorous, and her financial situation was precarious. But she wasn't afraid of hard work. In fact, it was the very thing that had kept her going all these years. If Leo could stand on that stage and talk about how success came with effort and dedication, so could she. One afternoon, as Maria was cleaning the executive offices, she overheard a conversation between two employees. It was nothing more than casual banter, but something about it caught her attention. One of them was talking about a new marketing position that had opened up in the company. The other employee casually mentioned that they were looking for someone with experience in project management or business development. Maria's heart skipped a beat. This was her chance. Without wasting a moment, she ran to her phone and started typing a quick email to the HR department. She didn't know if she would get a response, but she had to try. She was done being invisible. Subject: Application for Marketing Assistant Position. Dear HR Manager's name, I hope this email finds you well. My name is Maria Santos, and I currently work in your cleaning department. I've been following the developments in the company and noticed that there is an opening for a marketing assistant. I am very interested in this position, and I would love the opportunity to contribute to the company in a new capacity. While my current role may seem unrelated to the position, I have spent the last several months pursuing courses in business administration and digital marketing, and I am eager to apply the knowledge I've gained. I believe that with my dedication and work ethic, I can bring a fresh perspective and strong organizational skills to the team. I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to discuss how I can be an asset to your department. Please let me know if you would be willing to consider my application for an interview. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Maria Santos. Maria sat back, looking at the email she had just sent. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't care. She had taken the first real step toward changing her life, and for the first time in years, she felt a sense of excitement rather than fear. The next day, she received an email from the HR department. It was short, but it carried the weight of something significant. Subject: Interview invitation for marketing assistant position. Dear Maria, thank you for your interest in the marketing assistant position. We were impressed by your email and would like to invite you for an interview. Please come to the office on date and time to discuss the role further. We look forward to meeting you. Best regards. HR manager's name. Maria stared at the email in disbelief. She had done it. She had landed an interview. It wasn't much, but it was everything to her. It was a chance to prove that she could do more than just clean floors. A chance to show Leo and everyone else that she was more than just a background character in their story. That evening, she practiced in front of the mirror, rehearsing answers to questions she might be asked. She spent hours preparing, tweaking her resume, reviewing the courses she had taken, and mentally preparing herself for what was to come. When the day of the interview arrived, Maria dressed in the best clothes she could afford, simple but professional. She put on her shoes, which had seen better days, but they were polished and clean. She took a deep breath before leaving her apartment, as if the air outside would carry her courage to the office building. When Maria walked into the Tech Prime building for her interview, the world looked different. It no longer felt like a place where she didn't belong. It was the place where she was going to prove herself. She was ready to step into a new chapter, no longer hidden behind the walls of humiliation or doubt. As she walked to the HR office, she could feel the weight of the opportunity. The interview went better than she could have hoped. The HR manager asked her about her courses, her experience, and her skills. She answered each question with honesty and determination, never once apologizing for her background. She wasn't going to let the fact that she had been cleaning floors define her anymore. When the interview ended, the HR manager gave her a warm smile. We'll be in touch soon, Maria. You've done well. Maria nodded, her heart racing. The next few days were excruciating, but she waited, knowing that whether or not she got the job, she had already proven something to herself. Maria spent the next few days in a state of quiet anticipation, her heart always racing at the sound of her phone buzzing, or when an email notification popped up. Every time she checked her inbox, a wave of hope washed over her, followed by a surge of nervousness. It wasn't just about the job, though that was a significant part. It was about proving to herself that she was capable of more, that she wasn't defined by her past, and that she could stand up to the world that had once tried to keep her in the shadows. The following Thursday, a week after her interview, Maria's phone rang as she was finishing up her shift. She glanced at the screen. It was an unknown number. Her stomach fluttered, but she quickly swiped to answer. Hello, this is Maria. Hi, Maria. This is Carla from Tech Prime. I'm calling to let you know that we've reviewed your application and interview, and we'd like to offer you the position of marketing assistant. Congratulations! Maria's breath caught in her throat. She could barely believe it. She had actually done it. For a moment, she felt as though the floor beneath her had disappeared. Her mind raced as Carla continued speaking, explaining the details of the position and when to start. Maria hardly heard the words. All she could focus on was the sense of accomplishment and disbelief flooding her chest. Thank you, Maria finally managed to say. Thank you so much. I won't disappoint you. We have no doubt you won't, Carla replied warmly. We'll send over the official offer letter soon, but we're excited to have you join the team. The call ended, and Maria stood there for a long moment, the phone still pressed to her ear, unable to move. Her hands were shaking, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was a rush of joy and relief. It was as if everything she had worked for, the long hours, the sacrifices, the quiet determination, had finally paid off. For the first time, she felt like her efforts had been seen, her worth acknowledged. She took a deep breath and walked out of the building with a smile that stretched from ear to ear. The weight of the world felt lighter on her shoulders, as though the heavy burden of self-doubt and fear had been lifted. She was no longer just the woman cleaning the floors. She was someone more. She was going to make a difference. Not just for herself, but for her mother, who had always believed in her even when she couldn't see it herself. When she arrived home, she immediately dialed her mother's number. Her mother answered on the first ring, her voice soft and tired, as usual. "Hi, Mama. It's me," Maria said, her voice thick with emotion. "I got the job. I'm going to be a marketing assistant at Tech Prime. Can you believe it?" There was a long pause before her mother spoke, her voice trembling with pride and disbelief. "Oh, Maria, my dear girl. I always knew you could do it. I knew you'd get there." Maria's eyes filled with tears as she held the phone close. "This is just the beginning, Mama. I'm going to make sure everything changes for us. For you. For both of us." Her mother's voice cracked with emotion. "You're already everything I ever hoped for, Maria. I'm so proud of you. So proud." Maria wiped away the tears that were falling freely now. She didn't have to explain everything to her mother. Her belief in her had been unwavering, even when Maria couldn't believe in herself. This job was just the start. It was proof that she could change her future, that she wasn't stuck in the life she had been handed. The next few days were a whirlwind of excitement and nerves. She signed the offer letter, set a start date, and said goodbye to the cleaning job she had done for so long. Walking out of Tech Prime that final day, she couldn't help but look back at the building with a feeling of triumph. She had walked through those doors as someone invisible, someone overlooked. But now she was walking out with a future ahead of her. The first few weeks in her new role were challenging. Maria was learning to balance everything: her job, her studies, and taking care of her mother, but she never gave up. She poured herself into the work, staying late when necessary, absorbing every lesson she could, and constantly improving. Slowly but surely, she proved herself to be a valuable asset to the team. She wasn't just doing the job. She was excelling at it. One afternoon, as she sat at her desk in the marketing department, reviewing an email campaign she had helped create, she received a message. It was from Leo, the same man who had once humiliated her in front of hundreds of people. It read, "Maria, I'd like to extend an invitation for you to join me for a lunch meeting. I'd love to discuss how you've been doing. You've been on my mind lately." Maria stared at the message for a moment. The anger she had once felt for him flared up again. But this time, it was different. She wasn't angry anymore. She was proud. Proud of how far she had come. Proud of the woman she had become. She deleted the email without a second thought, her heart light. Leo's words no longer had the power to define her. She was no longer that woman cleaning floors in the background. She was the woman in control of her own future. Maria smiled to herself as she turned back to her work. She was ready for whatever came next. Maria's life had transformed in ways she hadn't imagined possible just months ago. The steady rhythm of her work at Tech Prime became her new foundation, and every day she showed up with more confidence. The months passed, and she earned the respect of her colleagues, proving herself capable and driven. She was no longer the woman invisible in the background. Now she was part of the team, contributing to the success of every project she touched. But as the weeks turned into months, something inside Maria shifted. She no longer felt the need to prove herself to anyone but herself. Leo's insult, once so sharp and painful, had faded into the background of her story. It was no longer her driving force. What mattered now was her mother, her future, and the life she was building. One evening, as she sat at the kitchen table, her mother beside her, Maria realized how much she had accomplished. Her mother's health had improved, and the bills that once weighed heavily on her mind were now under control. They had a future, a brighter one, because Maria had believed in herself, even when no one else did. Her phone buzzed, breaking the silence of the room. Maria glanced down. It was a message from Carla at TechPrime. "Maria, we wanted to let you know that you've been promoted to marketing coordinator. Your hard work and dedication haven't gone unnoticed. Congratulations." Maria stared at the message for a moment, her heart swelling with pride. She had done it. She had made it. From that first terrified step of sending the email to HR to this, her promotion. It was everything she had hoped for and more. As she looked at her mother, who smiled with tears in her eyes, Maria realized that the real victory was not just the job, the promotion, or the success. It was knowing that she had never given up. She had built this life from the ground up, piece by piece, with hard work, perseverance, and an unwavering belief that she could do better. She wasn't just a cleaner anymore. She was a woman in control of her destiny.